Our quote of the day, baby, just keep on living. I'm going to say that quote one more time for the folks in the back. Baby, just keep on living. Lady, I know you have heard that from some elder Black woman in your life. And if you haven't, well, baby, just keep on living.
Okay.
So, T, when you hear that, what memories come up for
Mm,
you?
girl, so much comes up when I hear you say that, baby, just keep on living. I think about how, okay, this is one of the first things I think about. When I was younger, you ever think back to that phase of life where you just thought you knew everything, like you had it all figured out. You just thought like, oh yeah, like I'm not gonna ever do this. I'm gonna do this. This is my plan. And then you keep on living it and your ass sees yourself doing stuff that you were like, I said I would never do this. Or, oh, this was my plan, but it didn't work out that way. Girl,
Yes,
I think it is a very humbling quote to just be open to growth and understand that you can change your mind, you can change your perspective, because when you keep on living, you will find that you'll probably end up seeing a lot and also having experiences that you maybe didn't think you'd ever have.
exactly.
What comes up for you when you hear that?
It's that piece around needing some humility, right? That like your elder
Yes.
is trying to school you in the gentlest, shadiest way possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like essentially that's their gentle, shady way of saying, girl, you don't know no better, but it's okay.
Listen.
When you
Yes.
keep on living, you will learn a thing or two,
Mm-hmm.
and you will probably have a shift in some of your perspectives.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's dive into some of those perspectives because I got to talk to you about something. So, Dom, I have been thinking about things that just how I've shifted, right? It's so incredible to me how we can be in the same body, right? Sometimes we even look damn near the exact same. It could be 5, 10 years have passed. But the essence of who you are can shift so drastically. What you believe, what you tolerate, how you show up. And one thing that I've been sitting with lately, relationships is always a topic. There's so many different aspects of relationships that have shifted for me. But one of the things is, girl, I used to believe with my whole heart that all men cheat. Like there was a period in time where I was just like, okay, maybe not all, 99%. I
Yeah,
believe
yeah,
that with
yeah.
everything in me. And I'm going to tell you why, and I want to hear your perspective about this as well. So one thing that I saw growing up all the time was my uncles doing women dirty, okay, with a capital D. And what
Mm-hmm.
that looked like was one uncle in particular, I'm not gonna call him out, but one uncle in particular, he used to always bring a different woman to my grandmother's house for the holidays, right? My mom's house was where everybody went for Christmas, Thanksgiving, like all the holidays, right? Having bomb
Yep.
ass food. And he would always bring a different woman. And it's so funny because I would watch it and I would just sit back and observe. They always had it going on. The women were beautiful and they
Mm-hmm.
became like family. And everyone, for the most part, whenever they came, for the most part, everyone treated them kindly. They treated them with love. You knew it was like this unspoken rule. And I was young, but I knew don't mention any of the other women when you see a new one come. And it's just be like, oh, I used to be like, he a pimp. He got all these. That was my thought as a kid. And so I remember thinking to myself though, as I witnessed that, I ain't never gonna let a motherfucker play me like this. And you know what I mean?
Mm,
And so that was
yeah.
something that I internalized, but I saw so many men around me like showing up in that way. I would say maybe my mom's husband who passed away, my dad, he was probably the only one of the only men where I was like, okay, my dad, I don't think he's doing nothing. I think he's a good one. Like that was my belief. So yeah, girl, what is your perspective on that?
So that's not how it's fascinating how our what we see growing up truly
Hmm.
shapes our perspective, right? And
Yeah.
the stories that we're told, the things that we start to believe, because that's not what I saw growing up. And so that wasn't something that I
Oh,
thought.
really?
I was not, I was,
Okay.
so I did not witness the men in my family like
Hmm.
cheating. Like that's not
Yeah.
something, I mean, now,
Not
did
to
it
say they weren't.
happen?
Yes.
Right. I'm sure
Okay.
that there was some guy in the family
Hmm.
who was not faithful to his partner.
Yeah.
But I didn't, because I wasn't truly privy to that information.
Hmm.
That's not what I witnessed in terms of the relationship dynamics growing up.
Yeah.
That's not a belief that I held.
Yes.
But I can see how, and so I think for me, like, there were certain beliefs that I held about men based on what I observed in my mom's relationship dynamics. But
Hmm.
then also, I saw something different with my grandparents. And so
Hmm.
I had differing views.
Okay.
I witnessed different types of relationships.
Yeah.
So, if anything, there was a level of confusion of like, wait, what is really happening?
Yeah.
How, and it was not, maybe not, confusion isn't the right word. Curiosity was more of the right word of like,
Hmm.
how do certain people, maybe, and this is also part of maybe what led to me being a psychologist, but like,
Yeah.
how do certain people find themselves in certain relationship dynamics?
Hmm. Yeah.
And so, because that's what, like, because I observed so many different types of dynamics.
Yeah. That's a good point when you put it that way. And honestly, now that we're talking about it, I feel like I'm sure there was a point where I was like, oh, maybe this person isn't. But I feel like at some point something had happened where I was like,
Yeah.
nah, I don't trust it. And I feel like it can bleed into how you see other people. You may not have any context about it, but I've seen this a lot on social media where people I heard someone say that happily married folks, they don't like to post on social media because the internet streets be hating, right? And so I saw someone post something and people in the comments like, oh yeah, it was a cute couple. Oh yeah, he probably cheating. And I'm just like, damn, y'all some haters. Like y'all just projecting. But I like we said, like if that's what you're used to or that's what you're accustomed to, that's what you see, then it's like, okay, then that may be true for you. And I also feel like Don with, I've experimented a lot over the years. So I've been tested out the poly lifestyle. And another thing that came up for me around that was this idea, especially because we're in this stage where people are talking about it so openly. Then I was like, all right, well, I feel like because of where I was in my journey, I believed that people needed to have multiple partners. Like I just believed that was, I'm like, people just have to. I don't think that you can just be happy with one partner. I don't think that is the truth. I just don't think it's possible. And that was my belief based on my experiences
Big,
and the groups I was in, the people that I knew who were swinging, like people who were just having these different experiences. And then I did end up meeting a real one who changed my perspective on all of that. We won't dive in too deep into that. So my perspective has shifted on all of that. But now I'm just like, oh my goodness, because I'm experiencing something different now. Now I'm like, oh wait, when I see other people, I have a different view of what's possible for relationships. Now I do believe
yeah.
that you can be with one person, and I do believe that there are men and
Hmm.
women who are faithful. I saw women and men cheat, by the way, but I do
Yeah.
believe that people can absolutely be faithful. They can be with one partner and be fully satisfied, but it has a lot to do with the fact that I'm experiencing that level of commitment and fulfillment now, where it's like, oh,
Yeah, yeah, no, I think that that
yeah,
makes sense. That, like, to me, when you say that, what comes up is this idea that a lot of our beliefs are shaped by our experiences and then
hmm,
what we've been told, and then
yeah,
societal impacts, right? And a whole host of other things.
yeah.
But I think when from a developmental perspective, your beliefs as a teenager of like what relationships are supposed to be like are based on what you're observing in your family, what you're observing in the people around you, maybe what you're seeing on TV or social media. And then so like it's heavily your thoughts are not truly your thoughts necessarily at
Hmm.
that stage, right?
Yeah.
And then in your 20s you start living a little bit, your frontal cortex, like that is like your decision making, your brain is still not fully formed.
Mm-hmm.
And so your decision making isn't still the best or the healthiest because your brain is still developing. Like research says your brain continues to develop until you're like 26, right?
Lord.
I think about my 26-year-old self and the beliefs that I held at 26 and the
Okay.
things that I was just super firm in. Well, this is how it is.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how things are going to be in life. I kept living. And things, like we mentioned earlier, things that I thought I would not do or
Mm-hmm.
would not experience,
Yeah.
I've experienced, or I've seen other people experience it, and my perspective on it shifts has shifted. And
Yeah.
I at this stage, and now had you told my 26-year-old self that my perspective would shift, I would have looked at you and called you a
Girl.
liar.
Okay.
My
You could
40
lie.
something self says, okay, yeah, my perspective has definitely shifted. And I'm open enough to recognize, like wise enough now to also
Yeah.
recognize that what is working for me, what beliefs I hold now in my 40s might not work for me in my 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Yes,
And
that
the
part.
way my life, like just with aging and the way that I will evolve, I'm not going to be able to hold some of the same beliefs about certain
Mhm.
things in life once as I get
Yes.
older.
And I think that's the beautiful thing about age too, because you realize I think humility to me, that is the word that keeps coming up. Like you're humble enough to know that things will change, you will change. And y'all, I know that Wendy Williams, she has been a polarizing figure, right, in media. However, I've been a Wendy Williams fan from day one. Like Power 99, her and Charlamagne used to cut up back in the day. That was my station. And one thing that she used to always say on her show was, I'm a woman of a particular age and I'm allowed to change my mind. And I love that so much
Yes.
because I've met so many people, men especially, there's one man in particular, let's just say, where he would make me feel like I wasn't allowed to change my mind. It was really around being in a relationship with him. One of my first boyfriends. And it was like one time, at one point the relationship worked and I was like, I don't want this anymore. It's like, well, you told me that this is what you were going to do. And I'm like, well, it's okay to change your mind. That was a
Change your
very big
mind.
epiphany for me. But I
Yes.
want to know, I have a host of other perspectives that I believed it like once upon a time and they shifted. What are some of the beliefs that you had that you held that you're now like, oh, I don't believe that no more?
I'm gonna toss out like a frivolous one. Um,
Okay.
and I call it frivolous because it used to be like around it was around fashion, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
my younger self used to think that women of a certain age, and okay,
Hmm.
let me be more specific.
Okay.
My prefrontal cortex developed self in
Hmm.
my early 20s
Yeah.
thought believed that once you got to be like 35, 40, there were certain things that you should not be wearing anymore because you're a woman of a certain age, right?
Ooh, that's
Listen,
us.
listen, early, right. And my early 20 something self was highly like judgmental and like rigid around like certain
Yes.
things, right?
Hmm.
One of them was, I think, yeah, well, like once you're over 35, you should not be wearing a mini skirt.
Oh my
Like you
gosh.
shouldn't be wearing little shorts.
Oh my goodness.
So my current self is like, listen,
Okay.
that mini skirt is gonna happen.
It's gonna get worn.
I wear shorts,
Hmm.
shorter shorts. I wear shorter skirts and I don't care.
Hmm. She didn't know how fly you was gonna be and how young 35 and 40 actually was.
Listen,
That's what
she
happened.
didn't know. She did
Yeah.
not
That is so
know.
funny, girl.
And so I think about like little like simple things like that I was like
Yeah.
rigid on. And like
Yeah.
I remember telling a couple of friends who were older,
Hmm.
yeah, girl, you know, that's a no.
Yeah.
No, once you hit 35, you can't do that no more.
Right. That is
Sorry to
so
my friends who I
funny.
said that to. A younger self,
Oh, when you were
younger
younger, you
Dom.
told them that?
Yes, I
Oh
did.
my
I did.
gosh.
Said it with my whole
That is
chest.
so,
Like, no, once you hit 35, you should not be doing that. Absolutely not.
yeah. Goes back to the quote of the day, baby, just keep living. Because listen, then you're going to be 35. Like, oh, I'm still young, actually. I'm going to wear these shorts. Okay. So, Dom, there are a couple other things that came up. There's one I want to dive into, but a couple other just like rapid fire. One, I used to think divorce meant failure. It was like a bad thing. I used to think
Mm,
relationships, I don't know. I feel like I used to view relationships differently, but now I view relationships as sometimes they like, you know how people say someone can be in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. I
yes.
think sometimes relationships can be like curriculums for us. They can really be learning experiences that help us learn more about who we are, how we want to show up, and then it's time to move on, and that's okay. It doesn't have to last forever. And then the one that I want to talk to you about, especially being a psychologist, is when I was, I'm gonna cringe even going back to this, but when I was in grad school, I was like 21, 22. And I was in the state in life where I wouldn't say that I thought I was always right, but I thought that I don't know if it's confirmation bias or what, Dom. You can help us out with the terminology, but let me just give you an example. So I was on this journey of self-discovery, doing
Hmm.
so many personality tests in therapy, learning more about who I am and who I wanted to be in the world. And I remember finding out my personality type. I did the Myers-Briggs, and I learned that INFJ, which was the personality type that I was, I guess, I'm about to say diagnosed, but that I associated with, it was
Yeah.
like this coveted personality type. And I remember thinking like, oh, the INFJ is the best. And then I started getting into my astrology a little bit, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm a Sagittarius. Sagittarius, or like I thought everything that I like believed or that I associated with, I thought it was just like, oh yeah, this is the ideal one. This is, you know what I mean? Like this,
Yeah.
is it superiority complex? What is that? Because I
That
think
is a
I'm assuming that
superiority complex.
but the
Yes.
thing is, but hold up, the thing is, Dom, I also was still struggling with like self-esteem and confidence. So it wasn't like I was cocky, but it was just that I don't know what that was. So can we dive into that? Like when we have beliefs that we think are superior to others, like I'm doing life the right way kind of thing.
Well, I think that a lot of people need to feel as though what they're doing is the right thing. They need
Mm-hmm.
to, we need, and people seek out it's validation, right? Like we need to
Yeah.
know that what we're doing is the right thing. And we need people to back us up on that, or we need research or something to back us up on the decisions that we're making, right?
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in that's what every person wants in life. Every person wants to be seen, heard, loved, validated.
Mm-hmm.
And we all go about seeking those things in different ways. Some of
Yeah.
those ways lead us down paths that aren't helpful or healthy. Some of them work out for us and turn out to be healthy and appropriate ways. And but going back to your original question around this feeling superior because things around you are confirming or validating what you believe, then it makes sense that, yeah, you're going to keep doing those things if everything around you is reinforcing what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think for young people, particularly at that stage in life, that is a normal thing to want to do, is to, as you are trying to figure out who you are and you're trying to start thinking for yourself, you're starting to have more autonomy, and you're wanting to make life choices that your parents aren't telling you, like that are separate from what your parents are saying. Even if it is agreeing with what your parents are saying, you are wanting to make the decision because this is what you want to do, not because what your parents told you, not because what your friends told you, not because what your partner told you.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of what helps fortify you in that decision making is the belief that you are right. Because otherwise, if you're filled with self doubt or you think that you're wrong in what you're doing, why do it?
Yeah. That is so interesting. I appreciate that perspective. Now, for the record, I don't have that perspective anymore. I'm very, so much more. That was like a decade plus ago. Like I have so much more, I'm so much more open-minded, right? I believe
Yeah.
that we all have something to bring and all that, but I definitely was like, oh yeah, my type is better. Like this, everyone has to be this. Like, girl, bye.
That's not, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And your type works for you because that's who you
Yes,
are, but that
exactly.
might not work out well. You try to put those personality traits into somebody else and it might not work out.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. Okay, so what about beliefs that have limited us? When we think about that, right? There's one in particular that comes to mind for me, and it's around income and what's
Hmm.
possible. And I remember, I think I shared this on another episode, but there was a woman who, this was like years ago, maybe a decade ago or so, but she had stated on social media that she had a goal, I think it was to make like 10K a month or something, or she had made 10K a month. And because that was something I had aspired to do, but I hadn't cracked the code on how to do that, I was like, oh, she lying. Nope, it's not true. Like I did not believe it was possible because I hadn't
Yeah.
achieved it, right? Like such a projection, hating ass projection. I needed some help back then. But it was just where I was in my journey, right? And so I think about that and now I have mentors who they're making like 100K plus in a month. And there was a time where again, I didn't think 10,000 was possible. So imagine when I thought about 100K. So I think that a lot, yeah, I want to dive into that too, Dom. Like, were there any beliefs that you maybe had that limited you, that shifted? And yeah, let's dive into it.
Um, there's not any that are coming up right away for me,
Mm-hmm.
but because I had a thought about what you were the belief that you were saying,
Yeah.
and I think for me it's not necessarily a number,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I'm not by no means an economist or a financial advisor. But what I know is that inflation, right? Like numbers
Yeah.
change over time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so figuring out like 10K a month today, the cost of
Mm-hmm.
stuff today, like 10K a month today is average,
Especially in
unfortunately.
California.
In
Okay. Where we
California, yeah,
at?
let me be specific
Yeah.
about California. That's average, right?
Yeah.
But 20 years ago, 10K a month would have felt like what maybe 100K a month feels like today. I don't, again, I'm not an
Yes.
economist, so I can't give the specifics of how numbers have changed over time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I do want to point that out that, like, as I'm reflecting on beliefs that I had around finances and things, there
Mm-hmm.
weren't specific numbers tied to it because
Yeah.
I always had that awareness that, like, what what feels like a lot for me
Mm-hmm.
might not be a lot based on like where we are at any point in time.
Right.
And so for me, it wasn't about specific numbers, but it was more so about the things that I would able to afford
Mm-hmm.
with the income, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Like the belief of, oh, could I get the Maserati or, is it possible to do this thing? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that makes sense. And another thing I was thinking about too is just societal norms and growing up
Hmm.
I grew up very religious, right? Like I used to play around and say I was born on the pulpit, right? Like church, vacation Bible school, grandfather, bishop, parents in ministry, all that. And I personally do believe that a lot of the judgment that I had for myself and others really came from being molded in that environment, I want to
Yes,
say.
I would agree.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Growing
and
up Catholic, I would agree. I could
yes,
see that.
right? Okay. And so the other thing that came up for me around beliefs is that there were so many societal norms that I adhered to that now, I'm about to say I wish my younger self could see me now, but like I'm so happy and proud of the woman I am today because I don't be giving a fuck. Like if it works for me and I can look in the mirror and I can go to sleep and sleep peacefully and wake up in the morning and be okay with who I am and what I've decided to do, I feel good about it. But I used to really base my decisions off of what other people thought, right?
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
who ain't
Hmm.
paying not near a bill, ain't contributing to shit. I used to care about that. And so one of the things that came up for me recently, Dom, this feels so liberating to like say and to just sit with and to embrace as my truth. But as a woman of a particular age, I have come to realize, and let me just say this could change it over time, although I don't foresee it changing.
That's what your
I
20-year
listen,
old self
that's what
said
my
too.
exactly, exactly. So just keep on living, right? I cannot foresee myself living with a partner. I subscribe today, even
Mm-hmm.
though I can be madly in love, I subscribe to the idea of living apart together. Some people call it
Okay.
let, but having my own space, right? So
Mm-hmm.
obviously my daughter's always going to have a space in my home, but like when it comes to partners, I love having my own home and my own space that I can decorate, that I can be in, that I can also retreat to. Now, of course, the way I envision it, Dom, is like, my partner will come spend a couple days. I may spend a couple days with him, but I always have my home base. That's
Yeah.
my space that I live in and that I manage. And I love that freedom. And I love the fact that I can express that clearly and freely, in my relationship. And so that's what I love. That's what works for me today. We'll see where that is 10, 15 years down the line, but that is something that I really appreciate my space. What are your thoughts
So
on that?
how did that evolve for you though? Like where did you start and how did you get to this belief that you're holding today?
Oh, Dom, that's a loaded question. I think Well, one, I think a lot of it has to do with growing up and experiencing homelessness and not
Mm-hmm.
having a lot of space to myself. So,
Yeah.
like, for me, it was, living in hotels or with family and friends. Like, I remember I was telling a friend about how when we were younger and we moved to Philly, my sister and I, we didn't have a bedroom. So, my grandparents had a three-bedroom house, but there was people in every room. So, we used to sleep on the floor in my grandparents' room. And that was the norm for me. Like, that felt so
Yeah.
normal. But now as an adult, I'm like, I can't imagine my daughter sleeping on the goddamn floor with a pillow and a blanket in my room. But that's what we had to do. So for me, having my own space has always been so important. But then being in a 12-year relationship and then cohabitating, although we manage our space well together, I just really appreciate having my own space. And now being divorced
Yeah.
and having my own space again, I'm like, I like having my space. I like to be the boss of how the decor is going to look and how things are going to be managed. But I'm not saying I won't have another space with my partner and I go there sometimes, but I've communicated like I want my own
Yeah.
space. So that's how I think I got there.
And so I think that goes back to our point of like the experiences that you have shape your
Hmm.
beliefs, right?
Yeah.
So I think that that's great.
Yeah.
For me, what I believe is that each individual couple, in terms of like
Yeah.
relationships, specifically around this topic of relationships and couples living together,
Hmm.
I think that it's the decision for each specific couple and their current circumstances.
Yeah.
You know, I remember thinking I had I knew someone who they had a commuter marriage, right? Where
What you mean? What's a communal
so
marriage?
basically they lived in two separate cities. I actually
Okay.
I know several people who have done this where
Really?
for because of their respective jobs,
Hmm.
they live for a period in their marriage. They lived in two separate cities. And my younger self would have wondered, how do you make that work? Because isn't a couple supposed to live together?
Yeah.
As I got older and being a therapist, but then
Yeah.
also and so working with different people in relationships, but then also just
Hmm.
living life, I come back to the belief that every couple has to do what works for them.
Yes. Yeah.
And what may work for you is not going to work for somebody else. And what may work for you might not be the quote unquote conventional or traditional way of arranging a relationship.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the piece that's most important. What is working for you and your partner?
That is so
And it
true.
could be something people haven't thought of before.
Hmm.
But if it works for y'all, then great. Keep doing that.
Yeah. That's a good point, Dom. And I feel like that's why it's important. And I know I say this, it's gonna be silly that I'm saying this, but it's important, I think, not to just tell everybody your business because some people can be so judgmental. And I feel like we are in the world, maybe it's just a social media thing. People be projecting like crazy. And I know I've gone through seasons and I've experienced projection and also have projected onto others, but I just think about how people are often on social media sharing this sort of blanket advice and generalizations that everyone should be doing. But like you said, life, I think that's the biggest lesson when it comes to beliefs, right? Your beliefs are going to change based on your
Yep.
experiences. So even I'm saying this lat living is for me now, let's 5 years from now, we might be doing an episode where
We're
I'm
going to
like,
check in.
well, what had happened was, you know what I
Yes.
mean? Exactly.
Yes. Yes.
And so our beliefs are going to change. They're supposed to. It's okay. And then also, your life is customizable. So your family may not understand what you're up to and what you're doing,
Hmm.
what you got going on. Your friends may not understand, but if it works for you, whether it's like an open relationship, which we've talked about on the podcast, right? Open relationship. Whether you we talked about we've had porn stars on the podcast. Whether that's your lifestyle,
Yeah.
whatever it is, whatever works for you, it's for you to decide, because you got to live with you at the end of the day.
Yes. And I think, the piece that's important also is recognizing that judging someone else for what they're doing is not going to help you, and it's not going to help
Yeah.
them either, right?
Yeah.
Coming from a place, it makes sense that sometimes we don't understand. And
Yes.
oftentimes we put out negative comments or criticisms or judge things that we don't understand or
Mm-hmm.
things that we haven't experienced. And
Yeah.
so again, makes sense that like in my 20s I hadn't lived, haven't experienced nothing. And so it was easy to
Yeah.
criticize and judge things that I hadn't been through.
Yes. That is very
And
true.
or to say, oh, I would have done this differently.
Mm-hmm. You ain't
I
experience it. That's
listen,
girl. That used to be me. I used to be like, oh, I never do this. Girl, I lived some life. I stopped saying that shit real quick because I did
real quick.
about 10 things I said I would never do. I was like, oh, here we go. So
Life is showing you.
yeah, life is showing you. And honestly, I feel like when we judge other people, it really has more to do with us anyway. Like it's
Yes.
probably something that probably judging ourselves on something, right? Because at the end of
Yep.
the day, I could see people who have certain relationship dynamics, and if it doesn't work for me, it's like, oh, okay, I'm just like I'm indifferent, right? I'm
Yeah.
happy actually, because it's like if it works for you, I'm happy for you, but that doesn't mean I have to adopt it. So I think that's kind of what I took away from these different perspective shifts.
Yeah, I think that's the
Yeah,
biggest takeaway is that, you you meaning all of us as a people,
yeah, yeah.
as we grow and evolve, our perspectives naturally will shift on things. And
Hmm.
so it's helpful for us to one, release any shame or judgment that we have on ourselves for things that we may be currently doing that our younger self said we would never do,
Hmm.
releasing any shame or judgment on ourselves for having judgment and criticism in our younger stages.
Yeah.
And also having some grace and compassion and perhaps maybe leaning more into curiosity around other people's experiences.
Hmm. Yep. Because, like you said, it has a lot to do with experiences. We don't know what someone's childhood was like, what caused them to show up in the way that they're showing up or to desire what they desire. And honestly, like sometimes it's important to just mind your business. Like, if it
Listen,
has
that
nothing to do
that
with
that's a
you,
thought that came up for
I'm
me as
like,
I was saying, curiosity. Like I said
yeah.
curiosity, and then I was like,
But
yes,
for
I'm gonna
real.
lean into the I am gonna lean into curiosity because I would rather
Yeah.
do that than judge.
Yeah.
And within that curiosity, the question to ask yourself is this my business to do I need to know?
Okay. Is this my
Is this gonna
business?
help or harm me in some way that it's important for me to know this?
Okay.
Am
Yeah.
I my my three F questions that I
Mm.
usually ask around whether or not I need to care about something
Mm-hmm.
or someone should have a say on something I'm doing and vice versa.
Oh, three F's. Oh, what is
Three
this?
F's.
Okay.
Feeding, fucking, financing. If you are not feeding me, if you are not paying for it, or and I am not your current sexual partner, you do not have a say in anything that I'm doing. I don't have a
Hmm.
say in anything that you're doing.
Yes.
And
I love
truly,
that.
even those, even if you're doing one of those,
Mm-hmm. A little asterisk next to that.
you
Okay.
don't necessarily have a say either,
I
because
love that
this is
so
my
much.
life.
Yeah. There you go. I love it. I'm thinking also too, Dom, about some of the beliefs that have not changed. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, we're going to evolve and grow, things are going to change, but there are some things that we kind of been 10 toes down about it for quite some time, right? And one of the things that comes up for me is just overall health. Not to say that I've been a health nut and I've like been super healthy,
Yeah.
but I remember in college I was trying to go to the gym and I'm like in the gym more and like into healthy eating. That's just important to me these days. But I remember back then I knew it was something I wanted to do. I didn't really have all the, I didn't really know what I was doing in the gym, but over the years I've developed and gotten trainers and learned more about it. But that is something that has been pretty consistent as far as me prioritizing that and believing that health is wealth. Anything that you can think of where you're like, you know what, this has been pretty steady over the years.
I'm gonna own my vanity,
Yeah, girl,
and
call it out.
say
Yes.
that, and I've always been like, since I was a kid, I've been pretty vain.
Yes.
Um,
I love
and
this.
so, and I use that word, and I'm gonna actually reframe it in this moment as we're speaking.
Mhm.
I have always taken an interest in my appearance. Okay. And so I, from early on, will spend money on making sure that my physical appearance is taken care of. So, whether that means making sure that my hair looks decent, making sure that I'm exercising in some form or fashion, that my physical, like that, and that I'm going for medical checkups. Like, it has levels to it, right? So it has
Yeah.
like the superficial levels, but then also the internal levels as well of like prioritizing my appearance.
I love that you said that because I think people, again, going back to shame, there are many people, and maybe I'm just on social media too much, but it comes back to social media, right? I see people judging people who care about how they look, right? And or
Mm-hmm.
who invest in it or who, yeah, like I don't want to leave the house just looking any old kind of way. Like I'm gonna look presentable and I don't think people talk about that enough, you know? I
Right.
feel like sometimes people make you feel bad about wanting to look your best or invest in your appearance or whatever you decide, whatever you got going on, whatever you decide to do. I feel like there's sometimes a lot of judgment on like, oh, you're so vain and superficial. Yeah, motherfucker, I care about how I look. Yeah, you right.
I also pay attention to my internal qualities as well. Like
There you go. Yes.
I'm also focused on my mental health too.
Yes.
So,
That's even
and
better. I
it
love
works.
it.
And so again, if it works for you,
If it works for you.
then it works for you.
Exactly. And I have an appreciation for that, Don, because I am the same way. I feel like we're superficial with substance, right? Like, yes, that we care about the outside, but we also care about the inside as well. And yeah, I'm really glad that you called that out. All right, let's see. I feel like we got a little bit more time. What else should we talk about?
Well, so what are the one of the other things that you're like 10 toes down in?
Oh, 10 toes down. Um, you know what? The belief that I am, hold on, I gotta look at I have a tattoo down here on my thigh that says abundance is my divine birthright. And I've been, child, I was reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, even though Robert Kiyosaki is a bit suspect. I've heard some stuff about him these days. I was into that book when I was like in high school, and I've been all about the abundant life for a very long time. And even though I have not achieved the height of my financial goals, that is, I am one of the people who like, I'm going to be delulu and get rich or die trying. Like that's the goal, that's what we're doing.
Yeah,
So I would say that's one thing I'm definitely 10 toes down about is the wealth and abundance.
I support that.
Period.
I support that.
Period.
And I think, as you said, as you brought up, you know, the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad being controversial, what
Hmm.
came up for me as you said that was we might have to do an episode on not like recognizing that the people that we idolize
Hmm.
don't necessarily need to be idolized.
Mm.
Like maybe we need to come off of this word of idolizing people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because everybody is human,
Yeah, girl, that part.
right? And so
Yeah.
tying it back into our topic
Yes.
for today,
Girl, you about
one
to
of
have
the
me go off.
things one of the things that the belief that I used to hold
Yeah.
in my younger years was that if you were like I had used to have not necessarily belief but certain expectations for if you were a celebrity or
Hmm.
an athlete or even a preacher, right? Like I had like, or
Yes.
you were this like civil rights person, like you were an activist, like I had certain expectations, and I'm sure other people did. I'm sure I had these expectations based on what society also
For sure.
expectations society held these people to as well.
Hmm.
And as I got older and started to realize how flawed we are
Yes.
as human beings, I stopped holding people to certain standards.
Hmm.
And from the perspective of expect the standard of expecting them to be perfect, right? Expecting them not to ever make mistakes. Expecting that they wouldn't do the things that most humans do.
And what do with the circumstances and resources or, exposure that they have.
Right. Now, are there certain, I think we also want to be clear that there are certain things in life that certain core values that we all hold that if people violate or people don't align with those core values,
Yeah.
then we know that these people are not meant to be in our lives. And so I
Hmm.
want to be clear that we're not saying that you shouldn't have core values
Yeah.
because for me, the core of who I am hasn't necessarily changed. That's different from me growing and evolving naturally in life. But my core values of treating people with kindness and respect, yeah, that's still the same.
Yeah.
That's never going to change. But the standards that I have for myself and others, those things have evolved. My expectations of life have evolved
Hmm.
as they should.
Oh, Dom, I just have to say, when you said that, it made me think about how sometimes it's really important to separate the message from the messenger, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people who do I'm gonna be just we're gonna keep it a buck. Okay. Sometimes there are people who do horrible things. And like you said, I was mentioning Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. I think in the past, I mean, I read this book when I was like, it was like almost 20 years ago. Okay. It was a long time
Yeah.
ago. And I don't think he was that popular or as popular as he is. And I don't think the things that he's done that have been controversial have been you know, publicly known, right? With
Right.
that said, there may be value or there may be something powerful or a message, a gift that someone who has done terrible things or who may be a terrible person or they may just be in that phase of season of their lives. I don't want to call people indefinitely terrible, but you know what I mean? Like they have done
Mm-hmm.
some terrible things. They may have something that's valuable and you may be able to take that, believe the person and not resonate with the person. You may not even want to quote them, but maybe you resonate with something that they shared. I think that is possible as complex human beings, right?
It
So not
is.
justifying the stuff that they've done, but it's just like, oh, okay, I actually agree with this thing they said, or actually it's a powerful takeaway or epiphany, and leave it at that.
Right. Doesn't mean that I agree with who the whole person is, doesn't mean that I like
Yeah.
who the whole person is.
Yeah.
But that piece, I can take that piece and be okay. And like you said, I could take that piece and
Yeah.
leave
And
the
leave the
rest.
rest. And you mentioned two other episodes, Dom, that kind of connected this episode. So I want to share those with you, lady, as you listen. So one of the episodes, it may be easiest to look this up in Google if this resonates with you, but it's season 4, episode 7, Myths and Beliefs We All Need to Unlearn. So look that up if that's up your alley. The other one is season 2, episode 7, What Do You Wish You Could Tell Your Younger Self? So check those out, Dom and I. I think we're done. Anything else you want
Yes,
to
we
add, Dom?
are.
All right, we're gonna go record the after show. So if you want to catch the after show, you can catch us out. You can catch us out. You can check us out on Patreon. So you can just visit herspacepodcast.com. Click anywhere you see Patreon. You can check out the after show video content and some behind the scenes footage. And we hope to see you next week, same time, same place.